Max's health is failing.
We have 8 days of supplies.
Help!
It's not just a question of doing something.
Amy!
It's a question of doing the right thing.
Stop! No!
There's a lot we do that's very technical. You know, you bring a lot of technique to work. There's things we need to do that are technical, like, you know, memorizing your lines or hitting marks, things that have nothing to do. They're the antitheses of honesty. But what makes it interesting, what ultimately, where the magic happens, is that transition from those left brain technical things into the right brain honesty of the moment. So I put this a little bit in that category, where there's technical things that make up how you might, what might enhance the performance, but ultimately it's just, he's a real guy with real things going on, real flaws that he may or may not be aware of, and I think that ultimately enhances the performance. You know, it's being real in the moment, not making it caricature.
The process of acting basically is the same no matter what the medium is that you're working in, but the thing about theater is that you get time to rehearse, and you can work out all kinds of things, and then you do it in the order that it's being presented, and it isn't finished until you have the audience feedback. Whereas when you're on camera, you don't have the audience at all. But otherwise, it's pretty much basically the same. I think the other main difference between film and theater is that I have sometimes gone to a premiere of a film that I've been in and realized I knew people in the cast. But they weren't on the set the same day that I was, so I never saw them. So that was one thing that was fun about this film, was because so many of us were in the same scenes together. We all got to be together and hang out together, and that was great. I really liked that. And then you kind of, when you're around people for any length of time, you start taking on some of the same kinds of roles, although I never did make coffee for the cast. Our craft services did a much better job of feeding us than I would have.
My preparation was different from a lot of characters that I've played in my career. I drew a lot from her being a mother, because I think Nancy's strength and the place from which she made all her decisions and her instincts were all based in motherhood, and in order for her to protect her child, she had to survive, and that became her number one priority. I think probably, you know, I've always been somebody that's fascinated by human resilience and what people will do to survive. I think I was profoundly affected when I was a teenager and I read a book called Alive about that plane crash in the Andes. And it just stayed with me, the fact that these people, these rugby players that were out there, they'd survived the crash, and what they did to survive. And I read the book, and then I saw the film later, but the book was the thing that sort of really stayed in my mind, because my initial response was just, there's just no way I could do that. It really grossed me out. But as I matured in life, you realize you're going to do anything. If your will to live is strong enough, you won't give up. And yeah, I really came from a place of my need to survive was of the utmost importance because of my daughter.
Looking at that script, there wasn't a lot of separation for me. You know, for Ethan, there wasn't a whole lot I felt I had to find out, you know, about him, especially because we don't really see him in the legal world, you know, either. Like, that would have been some research for me if he had been in a courtroom or that kind of thing. You just get to see his essence of that throughout the film, and that was a much simpler process, you know, to bring forward, because I felt he wasn't that far from where I'm at. So that was kind of my prep, and it was nice too that we had some rehearsal. Ursula Brooks and I got a chance to read together and rehearse together. We had a chance to also sit in on the auditions for Amy. So that to me is prep as well, is building those relationships early, so when you get to set, they're kind of already established. I mean, that's my process is, who am I? Who am I connected to? And what's my story? I tell people all the time, they go, why do you act? I go, I love telling a story. And I love that arc that happens throughout. So what's the story? What are we trying to say, here? And does it surprise you? As you go, you have to let it surprise you, I think, sometimes as well. So that was my prep.
Well, besides everything an actor does to prepare, like building a character and all that, I'm not a medical person, so I didn't know how to check a heart rate. And I talked to my nurse friends who showed me how to do it. Apparently you're not supposed to use a thumb because there's a pulse in it, so you can confuse the two. And I know it seems like a minor detail, but for me it was important to get those things, depict them accurately. And she's also Persian American. I don't think it's mentioned in the film, but it informs her culture. It's a cultural difference that she has, and it sort of sets her apart from the rest of the group. She wears a hijab, she's Muslim, so it was important to read the script through that lens and see what choices it could inform, or choices that she might make that go against her religious viewpoint, given the circumstances.
All of these things, from memorizing lines to that, dealing with props for continuity on the same line, so you don't blow coverage. These are all the antitheses of honesty, and it's incumbent upon us to master them to the best of our ability so we can then forget about them, move into the right brain, and be in the moment, and let things happen in real time. And it's very interesting because this is such a character-driven piece that's essential for what's interesting. What Jeremy wrote with this film, you're dealing with all of these people, these different characters who have a few things in common, thrown into a situation where it's their personalities directly feeds into how they all evolve in this challenging situation. And because it's character driven like that, if you don't get to those places where you can really be in the moment and react to what's going on around you, I think those are some of the best moments in the film.